I have a nice cake for you to make today. It's an Italian rum cake. They're always well liked, and they're a lot better if you make them at home, of course. It's a classic dessert, and it starts with a sponge cake. To make the sponge cake, I have 6 egg yolks. They're already in the bowl, and I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. And what we're going to do is whip those up until they're light and pale colored. Let me just start this. This will take about 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, once the sugar is incorporated, we'll turn it up. When this is light and pale, I'll show it to you. Okay, sponge cake is the basis for a lot of really good desserts. It's used all throughout Europe, and the interesting thing about it is each country seems to refer to another country as to the origins of the sponge cake. The French call it Genoise, which implies Genoa, Italy, but the Italians call it pan de Spagna, which implies that it comes from Spain. So it's used all throughout all throughout Europe, not just Italy. This is coming up nicely. Give it a little more speed. And once this is done, then we'll whip up the egg whites. Separate the egg yolks from the egg whites. Save the egg whites. We'll whip them up separately, and then fold them in together. Okay, the egg yolks and the granulated sugar are a light and pale yellow colored now, so I can stop it. And I'll take it off the machine and show you what it looks like. Okay. Okay, the egg yolks are light and pale colored, you can see. And I'll transfer them to this bowl. I'm going to clean out the mixing bowl because we have to whip up the egg whites next. So let me just put this in here. I have these nice new glass bowls, so it'll be a lot easier to see what's in them and what's going on. Okay. I have 6 egg whites, which I saved when I separated the egg whites and the egg yolks. I'll put them in there and I'll whip them up until they're light and fluffy. If you want to get the most volume out of the egg whites, you want to make sure they're whipped up pretty full before you add the sugar. Sugar will prevent them from reaching full volume. So let these get almost to stiff peak before you add the granulated sugar. I have a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. All right, I've got it on high speed to get this volume up rather quickly. And while it's coming up, I may as well tell you, the Viennese, they call sponge cake biscuit. So maybe its origin is Austria, since it doesn't refer to any other country. Who knows? There's a lot of really nice desserts, a lot of nice torts and things you can make from sponge cake, and I'll probably be using this on future shows from Thom's Table. This is where I started. This is the first thing I started with when I started my pastry career, was with sponge cake, and there's a lot you can do with it. So here I am returning to my roots with this sponge cake. There's 2 ways you can make it, and this way is called a chiffon. It's where you whip the egg yolks and the egg whites separately and then fold them together. You can also add all the sugar to the whole eggs, heat it up to 100 degrees, and just whip everything up together too. But this is the way I've decided to do it today. This is going to take another minute or so for this to whip up to full volume. I like the volume I've got on these egg whites. What I'm going to do is just put it down on the lowest speed while I add the granulated sugar, and then I'll raise the speed. It'll get retain its volume, get nice and shiny, and then we'll fold it into the egg yolks. I think we're ready. I think we're ready to fold them in. All right, egg whites are light and fluffy, and I have to fold them into the egg yolks. I'm sorry. The egg whites are a lot lighter than the egg yolks, so the first thing that I'm going to do is incorporate just a little bit of the egg whites into the egg yolks to lighten them a little bit, and then I'll put in the rest of the egg whites. There's a lot of nice air that's been whipped into the egg whites, and I don't want to lose that. And so we just sacrifice a little bit of it to lighten up the egg yolks before adding the rest of it. And it's just a folding motion like this. The sponge cake doesn't have any kind of leavening like baking powder, baking soda. It relies on the air that's been whipped into the eggs. So while you're folding this, you don't want to lose a lot of that air. I hope the bowl isn't moving around a lot, moving in and out of camera range. I'm doing the best I can to fold this in and not make the bowl slide all over the place. Okay, that looks very beautiful. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to fold in a cup of flour, and what I'm going to do is just put in half and then half, and I'm going to sift it, because even though the flour that you buy is pre-sifted, it still can get a little bit lumpy, and you don't want lumps in your sponge cake, so we'll just fold the flour in the same way that we folded the egg whites in, and then when that's almost completely incorporated, we'll put in the rest of the flour. And this will keep it lump-free and happy. Okay. I think that's it with the flour. And let me just finished folding in the flour. Okay, flour's incorporated. Very good cake batter. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bake this in a loaf pan. And I'm going to spray it. If you want to be classic, you can butter and flour the pan. But in all the places that I've ever worked, and some of them were pretty high class, everybody used cake pan release. All right, and I'm just going to put this in here. This is going to be just enough to fill this. This is a 9 by 5 by 2.5 loaf pan, and they're standard, very easy to find. I found these at Walmart, and it'll just exactly hold this and make a very nice loaf. This recipe will also make an 8-inch round cake if you want to do it that way. For any other needs, if you want to use this recipe to make a cake, 8-inch round, or this loaf pan. All right, we'll just spread it out. This cake doesn't really, sponge cake doesn't really rise too much. Okay, and the thing with it is, as soon as this is done, you want to get it into the oven as quickly as you can, because you've got all those air bubbles. You don't want it to deflate. So make sure you have your oven preheated. It's 350, and we'll put it in for 45 minutes. Beautiful sponge cake batter is in the pan. I'm going to put it in a 350-degree oven for 45 minutes. Make sure that that you have your oven preheated. Okay, 45 minutes. Make sure the oven is preheated so that once this thing is all ready, it can go right into the oven. You don't want it to deflate. As I said, the only leavening that it uses is the air that you whipped into the eggs. All right, next we'll make the custard. I'll show you how to fill this. One thing I have to tell you about sponge cake is it takes a little bit of planning to make this. Make the sponge cake the day before you need it. It needs a day to temper. When it comes out of the oven, it's going to have kind of a crusty outside. When you let it sit for a day, the moisture is going to even out all throughout the whole thing. Sponge cake isn't something that you can make today and use today. So just keep that in mind, plan everything out accordingly, and everything will go very smoothly. Okay, now we're going to go on to the custard. This is what the finished cake will look like. As I said before, it doesn't rise up very high, it doesn't dome, it pretty much stays the same. And you're probably wondering, why did I make it in a loaf shape rather than a round cake? I guess I have some explaining to do. This isn't really going to be a cake that you set out for a wow look. This is the sort of thing where if you're having guests for dinner, you plate this up, present it to them, and it looks spectacular on a plate. That's really what the way that we're doing it now. It's very easy to make this way, and makes a nice presentation. See how nicely it slips out of the pan, and what you want to do is cut the cake in 3 horizontally, like this. You'll have 3, and then we'll fill them with custard. But what you want to do is prepare the cake in the pan first before you put the custard in. There's the bottom one, and then I'll do the second one the same way. Good hand and eye coordination will help, but you know what? It doesn't really matter because it's going to look great on the plate and it's going to taste even better. So we have the 3 pieces like that, the 3 layers. What you want to do is put it back in here to fill it with the custard. Line the pan with some cellophane so it'll be very easy to get it out. And we'll probably take 2 of them together. As I I said, this is not very difficult to make. The wow factor is really high. But it just takes a little bit of planning on your part. Okay. And then what we'll do is we'll take the bottom layer, and we'll put it there. Now, since this is a rum cake, we want to moisten it with some simple syrup flavored with rum. And simple syrup isn't very tricky. I made it ahead of time. It's just equal amounts of water and granulated sugar. I used a cup each. Put it on the stove, bring it to a boil, and let it cool. And then we're going to add some rum. Use dark rum. It has the most flavor. And if it's going to be a rum cake, you definitely want to taste the rum. I'm putting in a quarter cup. I'm being a little bit generous, aren't I? Because I really want it to live up to the name rum cake. All right, and there's different kinds of rum you can buy. The lighter one and the amber one, they're good for cocktail parties. Just use the dark one. It has a very nice flavor. And as for the spiced rums, leave those to the college students. All right, there's no place in baking for them. I'm just going to moisten this bottom layer with this rum syrup. And I made a lot because I want to make sure it's going to taste like rum if it's called a rum cake. And once I moisten the bottom layer, we'll go on with the custard. We'll be filling it and moistening the layers as we build it. Okay, that's ready. That's ready for the custard. Okay, let's go over to the stove and make that custard. Okay, to make the pastry cream, we start with 2 cups of milk, and I'm going to put it on the stove, and we're going to add a quarter cup of granulated sugar. Just pour that in and try to evenly pour it along the bottom of the pan, and don't stir it. Just let it sit there. The sugar on the bottom will prevent the milk from burning, and that has to come to a boil. While that's heating up, we'll do the egg part of the pastry cream. I have 5 egg yolks, and I'm going to add a quarter cup of granulated sugar and mix them together. And the next thing I'm going to add to that is take 3 tablespoons of flour and 3 tablespoons of cornstarch and mix them. Cornstarch lumps easily, so before you mix them, put them through the fine sifter. And the cornstarch will also help the eggs from curdling when we add the hot milk to it. A lot of people call this pastry cream, a lot of people call it Italian cream, which is probably understandable because there's a lot of Italians in this area. But the Italians aren't the only ones who use this. It's used all throughout Europe. So we just call it pastry cream or vanilla custard. But I'm going to make some of it chocolate. All right, we have the flour and the cornstarch mixture combined with the egg yolks and the quarter cup of granulated sugar. And as soon as the milk comes to a boil, we'll add it gradually to this so that we can slowly heat up the eggs so they don't curdle. And then we'll put the whole thing back on the stove and heat it until it gets thick. The milk, let me turn this up a little bit, hasn't come to a boil yet. Maybe I'll see you in a minute once it comes to a boil. I don't have any champagne for a champagne break this week, so let me just see you in a minute. Okay, the milk has just come to a boil, and what we're going to do is bring it over here, and we're going to gradually add it to this egg yolk and cornstarch mixture, just a little at a time, so that the egg yolks slowly heat up, and we don't want to cause them to curdle. Just a little bit at a time, and as you add more milk, you can add it in greater amounts. Okay. I think we're doing okay here. All right, let me just put this down. A good thing that, which I haven't done, but it's a good thing to do, is you can take a wet towel, kitchen towel, and put it underneath the bowl, and it'll prevent it from sliding around. And as I said, I didn't do that, but it's a good thing to do. All right, now that it's a little thinner, the bowl's not moving. All right, so we add the milk to it. And I didn't add all of it because that's enough. Then we'll return all this back to the pot. And we'll put it back on the heat, and we'll cook it until it gets thick. which it will in not a long time. All right, back on here, and I'm using a wooden paddle with a flat end. That way I can scrape the bottom so we don't get too many solids and we don't get any burning either. All right. And I love using gas heat because it's a lot hotter. We can get things done a lot more quickly. This still should take about a minute or so. And of constantly stirring. You don't want the bottom to get burned or a lot of solid lumps to form. Okay. And when this comes together, I'll get back to you. This is coming together rather quickly. It's getting kind of thick. It's a little bit lumpy. And okay, I think I can turn this off. It'll get nice and thick. And then what we want to do is, you can see how thick it is. Take that bowl that we had before. Take this wire sieve and strain it through the wire sieve. That way it'll be nice and smooth. It's kind of a tedious procedure, but it makes a nice product in the end. And I'm just going to use this rubber spatula to push it through. You can see how nice and thick this is. It's going to be delicious in the rum cake. As I said, this is called pastry cream or custard, although a lot of people around here call it Italian cream because we've got an enormous Italian population around here. All right, just in another minute or so this should be through. I don't know if you want to watch me pushing it all the way through or if you want to just go out for something to drink and come back. Okay, custard is all the way through. We'll just scrape it off the bottom of this right here. And it's still very, very hot. And what we want to do while it's hot to add some flavor to this and some richness, I have 4 tablespoons of butter. That's half a stick. And 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And these will mix in very nicely because everything is so steaming hot. And the butter, if it's cold from the refrigerator, will also help cool the custard down a little bit as well. But this has been sitting out at room temperature, so it's kind of soft. All right, and once this is done, once this is all incorporated, we'll put half of it into the loaf pan on top of the cake that we moistened with the rum syrup. Okay. I think that's almost all together. All right. Okay, here's the vanilla custard. It's all finished. What you want to do is just by eye, take about half of it and spread it onto that layer that we moistened with the rum syrup. And there is your vanilla custard layer. Now to the rest of this is still pretty warm. Add 4 ounces of, I use chocolate chips. 4 ounces, if you don't have a scale, is, I'll show you, a half a cup, a very generous half a cup. So if you don't have a scale, and then just add that right in. The custard is still hot, and it will melt the chocolate chips. So you'll have 1 layer filled with vanilla pastry cream, the other layer filled with chocolate pastry cream. There's not a lot of extra bowls and measuring and weighing out, and this is it's rather quick and straightforward, and that's what's so cool about it. It's real easy to do. It's going to make a great presentation, and your guests will love you when you serve this. All right, that's nice and incorporated here. I use semi-sweet, but I think that milk chocolate would be just as nice, if not better. I'm taking the middle layer now, and I'm putting it on top of the vanilla custard. I'm pressing it down a little. I'm going to take that rum syrup again and moisten the middle layer. It's got lots of nice dark rum in it, so your guests should really detect it. All right, and once I finish moistening this, the simple syrup again is an equal amount of water and granulated sugar brought to a boil, allowed to cool, and then flavored generously with dark rum, not spiced, not amber, and not light rum. Okay, that looks good. And then we just take the rest of this pastry cream, this chocolate pastry cream, and just add that. spread it out and then put the top layer on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the top layer on upside down so that the brown crusty part will be in contact with the chocolate. And then we'll use the rum syrup to moisten the top. The cake isn't really difficult to do. It just takes a little bit of planning. If you want to do it all in one day, bake the sponge loaf earlier in the day. Wrap it and let it cool for a couple of hours. Because I know I said you need to make it a day ahead, but you can make it earlier in the day. Wrap it, let it cool probably in the refrigerator for a few hours. Then you can proceed with all this. But still, you're going to have to make this today if you want to use it tomorrow. So it's not difficult to do. It just takes a little bit of time and planning on your part. And okay, there we are. What we want to do is just wrap it up and put it in the refrigerator to chill. Let it chill a few hours or overnight. And we can use another sheet of plastic wrap to completely cover it. Okay, we'll place it in the refrigerator, and then tomorrow we'll slice it up and plate it after your dinner. Through the magic of time-lapse photography, I've got the whole thing already finished. Isn't that amazing? We can see what we've just done and see how it looks. It comes out of the pan very easily because it's got the saran wrap. All right, and there you have it. Looks rather like a tureen, and what we're going to do is we'll just cut off a little end here. And this is a little kitchen treat. You can feed this to the servants. Okay, cut a nice slice here and put it on the plate. Everything is very firm. Everything's very delicious. I know my camera crew says that they can smell rum and chocolate right now. There, doesn't that look nice? Now, to finish it off, I'm going to do something that might surprise and horrify you. And what that is whipped cream out of a can. You can make your own whipped cream if you want. I think this is fun, and that's a lot easier. So to garnish this rum cake, oh boy, give it a nice generous portion of Ready Whip, and take a Hershey bar and a grater, and just the large holes of a grater, just grate some nice chocolate shavings all over the whole thing. It's going to look absolutely amazing. Lots of wonderful chocolate shavings all over it. All right. And you do this for each one. Just plate up the dessert for your guests and just put this in front of them, and they will be amazed. And you don't have to tell them that you used aerosol whipped cream. You don't have to tell them anything. There we have it. I'm Thom. You've been watching Thom's Table. This is Italian Rum Cake. The whipped cream is melting under the hot studio lights, so I get to add a lot more. Oh boy. It will melt rather quickly even at home, not as quickly as under the studio lights. So make sure you serve it right after you plate it. The recipe will make about 8 to 10 servings, depending on how thinly you slice it. So if you have a lot more guests, plan on doubling the recipe. It doubles easily, and so does the custard. Thank you for watching again. Look for me on Facebook, Thom's Table. The recipe will be there.